Good evening. I'm Alice Freeman from St. Mark's, Wilson, North Carolina. And would you please give them a copy of the process there? As the Reverend Canon Beth Ely did mention earlier, General Convention met in 1785, and shortly thereafter they did establish a bicameral form of bicameral house, House of Bishops and House of Deputies. And the House of Deputies, of course, lay and clergy. To be enacted, a resolution must pass both houses in the same language. What we're talking about, what my section is on resolutions. As Kevin mentioned, what is probably going to happen with a resolution. Both houses have the right to amend legislation, but the amendment must be accepted. If there is an amendment or a substitute, it must be accepted by the other house. Resolutions presented to convention come from 4 sources. 1, they come from committees, commissions, agencies, boards of the church. Or 2, they come from bishops. 3, they come from dioceses and provinces. And 4, they come from deputies. You've heard about the Blue Book. The Blue Book, which is this year's pink, is over 700 pages. I checked with the archivist today of the Episcopal Church, and she tells me that since they have been keeping records digitally, they have received more than 3,000, well, there have been more than 3,439 resolutions that have been enacted since 1976. Y'all have been busy. For example, I think it was in year 2000 where they had over 400 resolutions to be considered. The Blue Book, folks, is that thick. What's that, about 6 inches, 5-6 inches thick? Quite a daunting task to go through. Once submitted, resolutions are assigned or referred to an appropriate legislative committee. Legislative committees consider, they amalgamate. I learned that new word, Joe. Joseph Farrell, who is, by the way, I'm giving this information. I feel really strange doing that because the foremost expert, in my opinion, on any kind of canonical information or anything dealing with resolutions or whatever, we have 2 of the best in the country. And that is in the form of Deputy Joe Farrell and Deputy Martha Alexander, who are with me here tonight. They are the real experts. Well, the legislative committees consider, and when they amalgamate, they merge or unite or join some resolutions together, and they perfect them before presenting them on the floor of the convention. These legislative committees hold hearings on the proposed resolutions. Who can speak at these hearings? Bishops, deputies, registered alternate deputies, and registered visitors. Now, remember, most resolutions, even if enacted, carry with them periods of study or require a trial period, after which they are usually studied again. It could take years, even decades, for resolutions to actually be resolved, as is the case with the same blessings. Legislation to be considered at convention is presented in the form of resolutions. And preparation for convention begins in earnest when these committees, commissions, agencies, and boards submit reports about the work they have accomplished during the triennium. And I said the 4 groups that can submit resolutions And in the Blue Book, resolutions are designated as A, B, C, or D. That makes it easy for you to keep up with them. A resolutions are submitted by the commissions, boards, agencies. B resolutions are submitted by bishops. C resolutions are submitted by dioceses and provinces. And of course, D resolutions submitted by deputies. Once a resolution has been submitted, the presiding officer assigns it to a legislative committee, and it's House of Initial Action, the HIA, which will be the house in which the resolution is first presented. What did I do? Bishop Curry, you're just having fun.
It's like HIA.
Oh. Okay. All right. The HIA, that's the House of Initial Action. That's where the bill first appears, or where the resolution first appears. Committee recommendations. Let me go back. The house in which the resolution is first considered. Legislative committees with identical names. This talks about the cognate committees. Let me move forward then to the committee recommendations. After hearings and discussions, the presiding bishop assigns every resolution that comes in, assigns those to the appropriate committee in the House of Bishops. The president of the House of Deputies assigns every resolution to the appropriate committee in the House of Deputies. There are 21 committees this year that will be studying all of these resolutions. After hearings, these committees, once they receive their assignments, they then proceed to have hearings and discussions. And the legislative committee can recommend to the House that a resolution be either adopted with amended or substituted text, rejected, referred to a committee, commission, agency, or board, or discharged from any further consideration by that committee. The resolution with the committee's recommendation is either placed on the daily calendar on the floor, and we pick up the daily calendars every day and we can see what's going to be before us, or they're put on the consent, what we call the consent calendar, which does not require any discussion. They've pretty much figured there'll be no debate over that. And in order to pass, in order to become an act of convention, let me go back just 1 minute. I'm going to wrap this up. In our U.S. government, a bill is introduced. Once it is voted on and passed, it becomes a law. In our church, a resolution is introduced. Once it is adopted, it becomes an act of convention. And so, in order to become an act of convention, if a resolution is introduced in the House of Bishops, once it is passed in the House of Bishops, whether it is amended, substituted, or whatever, it then goes to the House of Deputies. They either concur, or they reject, or they adopt, as mentioned before. And the process goes back and forth until everybody agrees on the exact same language of the bill. And once that's done, you rejoice and you eat M&Ms, and everybody's happy. One other thing, please. I would like to encourage you. All your questions can be answered if you'll go to houseofdeputies.org, all one word, houseofdeputies.org, and look for the handbook for bishops and deputies. They've made it really easy to keep up with this convention. I think you'll enjoy it.